Hey guys. So, if you're out there shopping for speakers, you probably noticed that you can find a lot of speakers that look a lot alike. And you're wondering, well, why do they do different jobs or do they do different jobs? For example, something like this guy right here. This is a 6.5 inch round speaker, but it isn't the same thing as a 6.5 inch woofer or a 6.5 inch mid woofer. This is a 6.5 inch mid range speaker. It's designed to play from like 200 hertz up to like, I don't know, 3,000, 4,000 hertz, something like that. That's where it's really supposed to play. Whereas another speaker that looks almost exactly like this may be designed to play 30 hertz up to 100 hertz. What makes them different? And why do different speakers have different design characteristics? Well, let's talk about that. The first things you have to understand when it comes to speakers is the material they use to build them is going to be one of the big factors that's going to dictate what job it is going to do. For example, in this is a mid-range pro audio driver. It has two characteristics that they're trying to achieve with the design of this driver. One is very high efficiency. What that means is when you put a little bit of power on it, you're going to get a lot of volume out of it. That's what pro audio stuff typically does. It gives you a lot more volume with less power. And one of the ways you do that is by using a very, very light cone. And sometimes the cone can be so light that it actually can deform just by pressing on part of it on one side or the other. You can actually deform it. It's just very, very, very thin and very easy to manipulate. But that's not important because we're only doing a middle range of vocal range. The sounds that come out of your vocal cords, your vocal sounds, and those aren't very low or very high. So this cone is fine for producing those ranges. Whereas if this was a woofer in this same size, the cone would need to be much, much more rigid. And in being a whole lot more rigid, it's also going to be heavier. That heavier cone isn't going to move as fast, so it's not going to be very good for producing vocals. You need a very fast movement to produce a sound of the human voice, or electric guitar, or even high notes in a bass guitar, or drums and things like that. You need very fast movements. Very fast movements are easiest to get with a lightweight cone. A lightweight cone isn't very good at doing big bass. So you see, these two things don't work together. That's why you need two separate speakers to do that. And that's just the cone material. We haven't gotten anywhere past that yet. Another one of the big factors is going to be so the lightweight and rigid, and those are always a compromise too, because the more rigid something is, usually the heavier it is. The heavier it is, then the lower notes can play good, but the higher notes can't. So making it both light and rigid means that you're going to have to make something that's really expensive. That's where your carbon fiber and stuff like that come from. The cones are much more costly, but they're also both light and rigid. And all these things are trade-offs. But another element that you can look at for figuring out what a driver does is its spider. And that is this portion under here that looks a bit like a little accordion. It's got this real rough little, circles around circles. What this is what actually controls how much this speaker can move in and out. Okay. And it also keeps the magnet, or keeps the coil centered in the magnet. This is your magnet or your motor. So the coil is attached to this cone, right? The coil and the former of the coil is attached to this cone. What keeps that centered in the middle of this mechanical device, which is your magnet, is the spider. So the spider controls the movement up and down or in and out of the speaker, and it also keeps the coil centered. Now, the larger the spider is from the center to the edge, the more potential range this can move. All right, see if you can see that. The larger spider is going to give you more potential range. And what the surround out here is not what dictates how much that speaker can move. What dictates that is the size of the spider, the amount of the spider that can flex. Okay. And so that's another element that's going to control what frequencies the speaker is capable of playing. Also, the material the spider is made out of, thicker, stiffer material is obviously going to restrict its movement. And then there's a linear spider, which is what this one is, where all the little rolls are the same thickness, and a progressive spider. And that one, you have bigger rolls on the outside and they get smaller as they go on the inside. And what a progressive spider does, if you look at a car that's designed for sports handling but still has a good ride, as the car's going down the road, the little bitty bumps that come along, that part of the suspension is really soft, right? So for a short amount of distance, the suspension on the car is really soft and compliant and can allow the wheels to hop over them cracks and bumps, right? But then when you try to really press it down far, it stiffens up so that when you dive into a curve, it stays nice and solid. It doesn't just roll up on its side like an old 1970s Cadillac. That is progressive suspension, okay, or dual rate shocks or dual rate springs, rather. Well, a progressive spider works exactly like a dual rate spring, except it's more of a, just keeps getting firmer, right? So at the progressive spiders, when it's playing at low volumes, it will play quite loosely and will allow it to play a lot of frequencies. But as you turn it up, it's going to limit the movement a lot more on the long range. So it's going to mechanically start cutting the amount of bass that's getting reproduced. They do this for different reasons. Usually you find them in subwoofers. And it's a good sound quality thing. If you spot a progressive spider and a subwoofer, it usually is an indicator that that subwoofer was designed for sound quality over just getting loud. That isn't always the case, but these two things usually go hand in hand. So watch for that. Another thing that controls how far the speaker can move in and out is how deep the motor is. So when you hear people talking about the big booty on a subwoofer or triple stack, double stack, quadruple stack magnets, what does it actually do for you? Well, what it does, since you've got this coil in here, it has to go somewhere. It's just sitting in there moving, right? It can only go as far as what they call the pole piece of this magnet, which is this end piece right here. This is what stops the coil from continuing out of the magnet. The magnet's actually a loop and a thing in the center, and this piece right here is the end of the road. The further this piece is away from this, the more of that there is, the further that coil has a room to go. So a bigger magnet or a deeper magnet is going to have more room for that driver to move in and out. Again, that's for excursion or how far it's going to move. And for a mid-range or a mid-driver like this, it's not really that important, but for a woofer or a subwoofer, it can be. So that's why you're looking for those tall stacked magnets back here, is so you have plenty of space back here for that coil to get into so that you can get lots and lots of movement. You also want a spider that's going to allow that movement to happen. There are so many elements involved in a speaker, and we haven't even got into tweeters. Tweeters are a whole nother barrel of monkeys. But hopefully some of this information will help you understand why different speakers are designed to do different jobs. And even two speakers that are designed to do the same job, one is going to do it slightly differently or better than another will, depending on what you're judging it by. If you're judging it by how loud it can get, then one's going to have an advantage over the other. If you're judging it by how accurate it is, the other one may have an advantage over that one. It all depends on what you're looking for. And just because it has a specific brand on it doesn't mean that it's going to be awesome. That means that company makes that speaker. Okay. That company may be notorious for making good speakers, but that doesn't mean that the speaker is the best speaker for the job. Each driver has a specific job. Understanding what job they have and why they have that job will allow you to pick out equipment that's going to suit your needs. Not just pick out something that's going to fit in that space, in that hole, and play music, because you got about a 1 in 10 chance of getting the right thing in that hole. That's not real good odds. And if you're looking for something that you can count on, Depmont's, one of their brands is Machete, and these MM60 V2s, really good little drivers. Really, really good. If you're looking for a good mid-range that can play a wide band and get pretty loud, these guys will do it. You could also pick up the Depmont's, these MFT 25s, fairly low budget, good little tweeter. Both of these are available over at Big Jeff Audio. Use my coupon code CAE for a discount. Guys, I hope I helped you today. I do my very best to bring you guys something cool on a regular. If you like what I do and like how I approach these things, hit that subscribe button down below and share this video with your friends. Peace, guys.